Okay guys, today I'm gonna talk here about one thing that I think it's very common like in all schools, and many people have doubts about how they should do. How should you call one higher belt to train? And should you call him to train or not? Guys, all schools are different, you know. There are some schools that they have rules that if the lower belt can never call the higher belt to train, things like this. Guys, at Marcelo's and the way I think as well, I don't care if some lower belt call me to train, you know. I think that's Jiu-Jitsu, you know. I think everybody should roll with everybody. So every time someone calls me to train, I always try to roll with them. And I believe that there are different type of ways you can call a person to train, you know. You can, if you're a lower belt, you can go to one higher belt and say, hey, let's roll. And this is not perfect, you know, you're not being like too polite. But I think if you go to one higher belt and say, hey, can I roll with you? It's different. So I think every time someone calls me to train on this way, like being polite, this and that, how can I say no? You know, it's gonna be a pleasure to roll with that person. I believe that if you gotta have a respect because the guy has a higher belt than you, but it doesn't mean that you cannot invite him to train. And but as I'm saying, every school is different, you know. And for example, the same way some lower belt calls me to train and he's super polite, if I feel I don't want to roll with the person, I can tell him as well. For example, many times I'm training super hard for a tournament, and then sometimes like blue belts call me to train this and that, and I'm very polite with them, and I just say, man, I'm sorry, I'm gonna compete, I'm training super hard, I'm trying to train for the black belts, can we roll another day? So I think we don't have to have that high ego that the lower belt can never call us to roll and this and that. As I said, like Jiu-Jitsu, I think it's for, I mean, like we are on the mat. Of course, we have different colors for the belt, but we are all the same, you know. And we all want to roll, we all want to have fun. So what's the problem if someone calls you to train? One thing I don't like is when I feel that the person, the lower belt, for example, is kind of challenge myself, you know. Every day he goes there and, oh, let's roll. Hey, let's roll. This I can feel a little bit like, man, he's not inviting me to roll. He's trying to compete against me like as it was a tournament, you know. So then it's a little different. But in the same way, you can always talk with the guy and say, man, I think you're being a little bit disrespectful. I'm higher belt than you. I call you when I want to roll with you. But anyway, if someone calls you to train, he's a lower belt, he come after you and he say, hey man, I would love to train with you, can you roll? What's the problem on that? There is no problem at all. I mean, like, I think you should always do that. At Marcelo's, for example, many times, many visitors come from all over, and many times they invite me to roll, you know, and I feel like it's a pleasure to roll with them, you know, man, they're traveling from somewhere, they come here, how can I say no, you know? So that's my tip here. If you're gonna call a higher belt to train, just be polite. Just go in. Don't show that you're kind of like challenging or something like that. Just be as much polite as possible. And if he gets mad because you are calling him to roll and you are being super polite, I think it's not your fault. It might be his fault. So guys, that's how I think. But anyway, I respect every school. I respect the way everybody thinks. I know that different schools are different rules. That's just my opinion, and I hope it helps you to train more with the higher belts too. Nossa.